an important aspect of the September 11, 2001 attacks, and one that is sorely underreported, is the CIA's Alex Station, or the Bin Laden Issue Station, as it was named. This is one important story that is actually hardly brought up in any type of forum online, and yet is the antithesis of 9/11 itself. It is the epicenter. This, along with the Yemen Hub, because without this, we don't have the intelligence agencies link into the September 11th attacks, foreign or domestic. It was constructed in 1996, and it's actually a virtual reality station meant to track Osama Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. The deputy chief of Alex Station, as it was named Alex Station after Michael Scheuer's son, was Michael Scheuer himself, who recruited many of the agency's earliest associates, like Alfreda M. Bukowski, Michelle Ann Casey, Jennifer Matthews. There was 4 FBI agents that were detailed to this agency, and they were meant to be the eyes and ears of John O'Neill, who is the FBI's leading counterterrorism expert. But the CIA actually knew of O'Neill's reputation, and Scheuer actually hated John O'Neill, and vice versa. O'Neill was a very proud man, but he was actually one of the best leading terrorism experts probably in the country. In New York, the I-49 team, I consider one of the most unheralded organizations in the United States when it came to Arab terrorism, going as far back as the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, when you have people like Frank Pellegrino, John Antisev, Louis Napoli, John O'Neill, and later came Ali Soufan, Mark Rossini. There were 4 FBI agents that were detailed to the Alex Station, or the Bin Laden Issue Station, at the behest of John O'Neill, and that is Ed Getz, Margaret Gillespie, Doug Miller, and Mark Rossini. And they were all detailed there to monitor whatever information the CIA was to get. But the CIA knew this, and they knew not to share information with them, but to stall any information that was collected from the CIA, who was the head agency in regards to monitoring Osama bin Laden. We have to go back a little bit to understand what agencies were involved with bin Laden, and I won't go that far back, but in 1992, the NSA had, as well as the FBI, had begun monitoring a Saudi agent in Long Island who bought a satellite phone, who then transferred over to a contact in Virginia, and that contact gave it to Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. This phone was then monitored by the NSA because the FBI gave the information regarding what type of phone this person bought. And so the NSA had kept an open track on the phone. So from 1992 to 1998 is when bin Laden got rid of the phone. For 6 years, the NSA became aware of bin Laden's conversations and who was calling him. And one number kept popping up multiple times, and it was red flagged by the NSA. and it came from a number from a house in Yemen. The town is Sa'naa Yemen. It was owned by one Ahmed al-Hada. Many people won't know who that is, but he's a very important person. And he's barely ever mentioned in the media, and he's barely ever mentioned by 9/11 experts themselves. But Ahmed al-Hada was an associate of Bin Laden's from his early days in the Afghan-Soviet War. And so this house in Yemen became, in time, the main communications hub for Al-Qaeda around the world. A lot of phone calls were coming in. A lot of phone calls were made out of his home, human transmissions. And soon enough, another individual will be visiting this home. Sometimes lived there, but his house, but he didn't primarily live in his house. And he was involved with the 9/11 attacks, as well as the USS Cole and allegedly the 98 East Africa embassy bombings. And that is Khalid al-Mihdhar. Khalid al-Mihdhar had married Ahmed al-Hada's daughter, and he became the son-in-law to Ahmed al-Hada in 1997. The NSA had put a bug inside the home of Ahmed al-Hada. Now, there's some dispute whether that bug came in 1998. Some agencies would like to believe, especially the NSA, but according to the FBI and some contacts in the CIA, it was in 1996 when the number was found out to be calling Bin Laden's phone numerous times. And so what happened was the NSA was the first agency in the world to monitor Bin Laden's satellite phone and the Ahmed al-Hada home. Now, the CIA became aware of this. In 1998, after the East Africa embassy bombings, John Antisev went to visit Mohammed al-Hawlahi, who actually survived. He ran away from the truck that he was supposed to be a martyr from, but if you want to believe that story, according to Bin Laden, he was actually meant to run away and not get caught, though. But he actually made a phone call from an outside line, and a security guard saw the back of his shirt all burnt off, and he called the police, and they monitored him going to the hospital, and that's where he got caught. So the FBI's John Antisev, the I-49 team, went to visit him and opened a friendly dialogue with him, in which al-Awlahi responded to. And al-Awlahi gave John Antisev a number that he called. That number was the Ahmed al-Hada home. John Antisev then decided to share that information with the CIA. Now, I believe the CIA got wind of the number earlier anyway, but that's up for debate. So the CIA decided to build a listening station because, according to Michael Scheuer, he actually went to the deputy director of the NSA, Barbara McNamara, and because the CIA could actually who had a line inside the house but couldn't have a line on the phone, and said that if you could give us the other transcripts of the incoming calls, it would be helpful. And McNamara refused and said to Scheuer in those certain terms, don't compromise our operation or we'll sue you. And Scheuer backed off. And I'm pretty sure that Tenet actually told Scheuer to back off. Scheuer is actually a very aggressive person, very dedicated and focused person. He has a large, expansive history in regards to counterterrorism, especially with the Saudi Kingdom. I think he speaks Farsi. So Scheuer is actually a good man for the job, but his ego is tremendous, even for CIA standards. And so with this, the NSA and the CIA had begun an operation. Now, the CIA was the head intelligence agency, was the main agency that was involved. Even though the NSA was the first agency to monitor the Ahmed al-Hada home, the CIA took charge. And so the person in charge of the Yemen ticket was Michelle Ann Casey. And we could thank authors Ray Nowolski and John Duffy because they are the ones who used sensitive data alleviating who these people were. And the CIA actually told them not to use their names, but they went anyway, which was quite daring on Nowliski's part to do so. And I'm pretty sure that he got in some trouble for it. Nevertheless, the CIA's Bin Laden issue station became the primary station in following all the communications, human intelligence, or human, as NSA was SIGINT, and it signals intelligence from the Ahmed al-Hada home. The FBI, unfortunately, was left out in the dust, so they had to fight for the scraps of information, which came very enthusiastically from the NSA and even less enthusiastic from the CIA. So the FBI had to work on just basic flat footing, and they did a good job. The I-49 team actually had a billboard in the New York office of all the contacts where they would have this paid faces of individuals and names and spots, and they did an okay job. I mean, it was pretty hard. I mean, they got a lot of help from their lawyers that were involved with the case as well. I thought they were the better agency, actually, even though the CIA and NSA had the big money and the FBI did. And that was basically due to John O'Neill, who never took no for an answer. And so with the three agencies, they became aware, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that this would be quite something that the NSA could listen in on to all the phone calls, or most of the phone calls made out of that home since 96 all the way to 2002. That's 6 years of data, and it came out much later. Former NSA analysts and cryptolinguists Thomas Drake, William Binney. Drake mentions many times that the NSA had metadata regarding all the hijackers that were involved with 9/11 months, even years in advance, regarding plane tickets, communications, whatever. And the NSA, under Director Michael Hayden, who gave the plausible deniability and excuses for the very few questions he faced regarding the two congressional inquiries of the 9/11 Commission and the Joint House, who barely had any questions for Hayden, but Hayden claimedly said that we didn't have the necessary manpower to transcribe all the cables that came in out of the Ahmed al-Hada home. This is actually the biggest case for the NSA. I'm pretty sure that they had a select team for this operation, but that's all we have to go by because there's very little information regarding NSA and the Ahmed al-Hada home. Why? I don't understand. They would be the primary agency to gather information from because they could listen into everything. Now, CIA actually had a lot of data because they, unlike the NSA, had intelligence sources on the ground, and they're much more expansive than the NSA. They basically have agencies and offices in basically every city in the world. And so they were following the ins and outs of the people who were coming in and out of the house, and Khalid al-Mihdhar was a prime example of tracking information. In fact, the NSA got a phone call from a Khalid, and that individual was talking to Khalid al-Mihdhar. Now, Khalid is Walid bin Attash. He's actually in Guantanamo, and he is a longtime terrorist. His family, his father, Abdulaziz Mohammed Salah bin Attash, is a longtime member of the Afghan Mujahideen. Walid bin Attash is considered a, quote, scion of a terrorist family, end quote, by the 9/11 Commission. And so he's an important figure, but nobody knows his real name. They just know him as Khalid. And he was talking to Khalid al-Mihdhar. And they were mentioning about a meeting that was to take place in Malaysia. And this meeting the information that was gathered from the NSA. The NSA then told the CIA and the FBI, because they had people that can actually travel there, go there, and monitor human intelligence, something the NSA doesn't do. And they could use that information, and in the hopes that the NSA and the FBI would share with the NSA. And they did. The FBI did anyway. So CIA and the FBI traveled to Malaysia, and while there, they were there for 3 days, and it was the Yemen authorities who decided to videotape the event, but they only videotaped the outside of the building. And so what happened was, at this meeting of high-profile terrorist operations, they were talking about multiple operations that were to take place. And this meeting is actually infamously named as the Kuala Lumpur Al-Qaeda Summit meeting. An individual by the name of Yazid Sufat, who was a Saudi businessman, a former Malaysian army captain and businessman as well. He rented a three-day meeting in this condominium. And the operations that were to take place in talks were the 2000 USS Cole, but it was actually the Sullivans at first. That's what they tried to bomb at first, but the boat sank because there was so much explosives on it. This is the type of terrorists we're dealing with. And so the Cole was bombed afterwards. I'm pretty sure they were talking about the 9/11 attacks, because at the meeting was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Nawaf al-Hazmi, Ramzi bin al-Shib, Ridwan Isamuddin, who goes by the name of Hambali, head of the Jamaat-e-Islami in Indonesia. Supposedly Zacharias Musawi came at this meeting as well. Tawfiq bin Atash, and other less notable names. So the CIA took photographs of Khalid, Tawfiq bin Atash, Khalid al-Midar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and they were the primary agency who had photographs. They're the only agency that had this. They didn't share this with the FBI. And so CIA had pictures of these men. The NSA did not. They didn't share this with the NSA either. However, after this meeting, the CIA broke into Khalid al-Midar's hotel room while he was traveling to the UAE, because from the meeting, him and Nawaf al-Hazmi were to travel to the United States and be the first agents inside the United States and plan for the 9/11 attacks. But before he got to the United States, Khalid al-Midar went to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. While there, the CIA actually breaks into his hotel room and took photographs of his passport. And on his passport, he also had a dual U.S. entry visa. And so this information was quickly sent to Alex Station. And the deputy director of Alex Station is Tom Wilshire. And so the information was first read by Wilshire, and then it was read by Michelle Ann Casey, and the third agent was Doug Miller, the FBI agent. And so Miller actually sees the cable, sees that Khalid al-Midar has a dual entry visa to the United States, and drafts a cable to warn FBI headquarters that Khalid al-Midar is heading to the United States. And this cable actually had to be approved from Deputy Director Tom Wilshire to be shared with an outside agency. And so Wilshire had read the draft, and Michelle Ann Casey was with him as well. And so it was left up to Casey to add to the draft, quote, "Please hold off for now, per Wilshire," end quote. And so the draft cable wasn't shared and was held. And so Mark Rossini confers with Doug Miller and sees the cable, the draft cable not sent. He goes and confers with Michelle Ann Casey, in which Casey says to Mark Rossini, in no uncertain terms, that we will let you know what to share with the FBI, and anything else is off limits, can't share any data with the FBI because we're the head agency in charge. And so later on, she also tells Mark Rossini that they believe Al-Qaeda is planning attacks abroad. And so it would be a CIA operation because if it's inside the United States, the CIA has no federal jurisdiction there. It's the FBI. And they would have no control over the operation. And so that could be one of the primary reasons why the CIA didn't share the information with the FBI to begin with. So Mark Rossini couldn't believe what he was hearing, knowing that Khalid al-Mihdhar is a dangerous individual who has ties to Al-Qaeda. And so it's later found out by the Alex station that Nawaf al-Hazmi is with Khalid al-Mihdhar, and he has a U.S. visa. This information is also not shared with the FBI. So the FBI is actually in the dark. Now, the NSA is actually monitoring the cell phones of Khalid al-Mihdhar. And so they never lose track because when Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi leave the meeting, the new deputy chief of Alex Station, Richard Blee, in 1999, who took over for Scheuer because he became too volatile and unpredictable. Blee is a much more established CIA man and was much more preferred by George Tenet, who was the director. And in regards to Blee's hiring, Tenet also hired Cofer Black, who's a longtime counterterrorism officer. And he was actually a good man for the job. And so he's headed the counterterrorism unit or the counterterrorism center. So Blee is the new deputy chief of Alex Station, and he actually goes to a meeting with U.S. president, and he actually briefs the president about information coming in from Alex Station. Often there is John O'Neill, Condoleezza Rice, who's the National Security Advisor, Richard Clark, who is the National Security Council. And while at this meeting, Blee doesn't share with anybody about Khalid al-Mihdhar being at this meeting. He hardly ever brings up the meeting, but he tells them that they lost track of the Kuala Lumpur meeting and Khalid al-Mihdhar, because when they leave the meeting, they say they just lost track of Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Conveniently, this is what I believe, that they just washed their hands of it because knowing that they're going to be inside the United States, the CIA is not allowed to run operations inside the United States. And so this was their way of letting go of Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Now, the CIA is actually still running operations overseas, and before that, they were monitoring other terrorist entities that were involved with other hijackers like Mohammed Atta, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, Marwan al-Shehi, and the people grooming them, especially Mohammed Haydar Zamar and Mahmoud Darkanzali. And these are people that most 9/11 enthusiasts and hobbyists don't recognize because they're hardly ever mentioned. But these are Arab criminals. They're from Syria. They moved to Germany, and they were involved in the formation of the, as they say, the Hamburg cell from Al-Quds Mosque, is where Mohammed Atta, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, Marwan al-Shehi are from. And so they basically manipulate these young men into the jihadi mentality. And Mohammed Haydar Zamar is well known by the German intelligence and the CIA. In fact, the CIA tried to recruit him and Darkanzali, and they failed, or if they did, that's up to them. But who knows if they were operatives or informants? We don't know for sure. But Haydar Zamar continues operations in Afghanistan. He's a recruiter for Al-Qaeda. And so they come into the United States in 2000, late 2000. That's the Hamburg cell in the East Coast. They go to Florida. They travel all around. They go to Oklahoma, Minneapolis, Texas, New Jersey, and then New York. Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi actually go to Los Angeles in January of 2000 after the meeting. And so they basically go to a restaurant, and out of the thousands of restaurants that these people go to in Los Angeles, while they're ordering food, some man who is sitting down in the restaurant actually hears them speaking Arabic. And Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi don't know English. In fact, al-Hazmi speaks very, very little English, and it's terrible. So the person who hears him speaking Arabic is Omar al-Bayoumi, and he's actually later on found out to be a Saudi GID officer. He basically meets Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi conveniently in the restaurant. And according to al-Bayoumi, he actually later told the 9/11 Commission who interviewed him in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in 2002, that he always greets new Muslims that come into the United States and helps them. Well, he gave them the first 2 months' rent. He would allow Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi to use his cell phone. He actually helps him get a car. And so that's quite a lot for considering that this man really didn't have a job, even though he was a ghost employee for an airline company. But he was never there. And so he was getting money from the Saudi intelligence to keep a watchful eye on these two agents, as well as another agent called Osama Basnan, who's actually a lot more fervent in his ideology. He actually reveres Osama Bin Laden, calls him a hero. He threw a party for Omar Abdel Rahman many years prior to this chance meet of al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. So this guy is actually friendly with high-level terrorist operatives. And the FBI was well aware of Basnan. Basnan has a wife named Nawada Duijak, who later comes into play, and I'll tell you why. After the 9/11 attacks, it's later found out that there was a financial paper trail, and it was uncovered by the FBI in the Pent Bomb investigation. Although most of the investigation was redacted in 28 pages, which is a part of the Joint Intelligence House Committee report that came out in 2003, it showed that the Saudi agent, Osama Basnan, was actually his wife, Nawida Dawijak, was getting 14-month payments, per monthly payments of anywhere between $5,000 to $11,000 a month. It varied each month, and that money came from a woman by the name of Haifa bin Faisal, who had a bank account in Riggs Bank, and that account was owned by, and she is the wife as well of one Bandar bin Sultan, who has a nickname called Bandar Bush because of his close affiliations with the Bush family, going all the way back to Herbert Walker Bush. He also served as the U.S. Saudi ambassador under Reagan, under Clinton, and both Bushes. And so he has long-standing ties, but he's very close with the Bush family. And so here's a direct link to a U.S. Saudi ambassador whose money indirectly went to two hijackers. We don't have proof that he directly gave them money, but that's why I said it's indirectly. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And so with that, you have the Israeli operatives in the East Coast monitoring the Hamburg cell, Mohammed al-Hada, Marwan al-Shia, and Ziad Jarrah, even though Ziad Jarrah actually lives alone from Mohammed al-Hada and Marwan al-Shia. In fact, he always has lived alone, even abroad. He's never seen with any of the hijackers, except in late August when he meets the detail of Flight 93. And that's Ahmed al-Nami, Ahmed al-Hasnawi, and Saeed al-Ghamdi. And even though he rents a hotel in Maryland and of course, the Days Inn Motel in New Jersey, he always lives separately from them. In fact, in the Days Motel, he rented a room separately for himself, and he got a room for the other three. Why no one talks about this? This suspicious activity that this one hijacker has always lived alone, separate from all the hijackers. Even if he if you want to say, well, he doesn't need to know the other operatives, he has to know about his own operatives that were involved in the Flight 93 hijacking. But I've covered that in previous videos. And so the CIA link to Ahmed al-Hada home, which, by the way, continued service until 2003. And to this day, nobody knows where Ahmed al-Hada is, whether he's alive or dead. In fact, the media has hardly ever reported about who he is. In fact, his son was actually killed by Yemen authorities in a firefight. I want to say that happened in 2005 or 2004. And then we never hear about anything about the Ahmed al-Hada home again. Why? This would be the epicenter for all information regarding the attacks of September 11th, the USS Cole bombing, and maybe even the U.S. Embassy bombing, because if the NSA had a tap in the line all the way back to 1996, that means they have 6 years of data regarding information if they were talking about it by phone. And I'm going to assume with conviction that, yes, they were talking about these operations by phone. And so why is it that this story is ignored by most 9/11 experts in this field? And I don't even have to get into the legacy media, because not only do they not bring this up, they don't even bring up anything about 9/11 at all, except to interview the most rabid of conspiracy theorists. And that is basically low-hanging fruit, if you ask me. It's easy to pick on those people, but they're doing it because they want to show that the whole truth movement is basically a bunch of unpredictable, unreliable, uneducated people. And that's not necessarily the case. Yes, they do have many people who are leading the truth movement who espouse ridiculous theories, but that's not the case for the whole movement. There's a couple of very good people, solid individuals, who are trying their best to get the information out that 9/11 wasn't fully and properly investigated, and it really wasn't. I hate to use the term inside job, but yeah, there was a lot of anomalies that were either ignored or left off the table in the 9/11 Commission's final report. And I can't blame all the commission members, because they looked at millions of documents and files, and they were not allowed to look at millions of others more, because heading the commission was a State Department affiliate of a Bush arm, Philip Zelikow, who was close friends with Condoleezza Rice. And so the State Department was friendly with Bandar bin Sultan, and the Saudi government was also friendly with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. In fact, all the Israelis that were spying on the DEA, the FBI, the Amdocs investigation, the drug ring that was here, the Israeli art student ring, most of these people were basically in the country with expired visas, not to mention the Israeli ring that was monitoring the hijackers, were all basically disposed from the country and back to Israel. And we can't interview these people. Yes, the FBI interviewed the 5 Israelis, the dancing Israelis, and the 2 Israelis caught in Pennsylvania that nobody ever talks about. And they basically got, the general answer of, oh, I didn't know, and we basically were just monitoring Hamas operatives inside the United States. While they did inform the CIA, according to Mossad, the Israeli Mossad, we warned the CIA about hijackers inside the United States. Well, guess what? The names of the hijackers that the Israeli Mossad gave the CIA was already not acknowledged by the CIA. And did they share that with the FBI? If the Israeli Mossad and the CIA actually cared, as well as the Saudi GID, if they actually cared about having federal agencies who can do something and who have federal jurisdiction inside the United States, they would have told the FBI. They would have told the State Department. And they would have told the Department of Justice, the FBI, or local authorities. in New York or Florida or Los Angeles, and they would have kept an eye. But that wasn't the case. And so we're left with these questions about why they didn't share this information. And sometimes it borders on maybe the CIA, Israel, and Saudi Arabia wanted this to happen because of the benefits they could reap later on. And I can make a pretty good case for that. I don't have direct evidence, nobody does, about that they wanted this to happen. But it basically looks that way. But you're not looking in these directions if you're going to say, there's no hijackers and no planes and whatever. So you won't look in this direction. You won't look at Ahmed al-Hada. You won't look at the Yemen Hub. You won't look at the NSA monitoring the Yemen Hub, or the CIA monitoring the Yemen Hub in the Malaysia summit meeting. Or you won't look into Bin Laden's satellite phone the NSA was monitoring. Or the FBI basically indisposed to monitor these agencies. Why? Because they didn't get the information from those agencies involved. So that's what we should be looking at, and that's what we should be talking about. We shouldn't be talking about the other irrelevant conspiracy theories that are based on nonsense. You want conspiracy theories? Well, I just gave you a couple, and that is far more damning to foreign intelligence and domestic intelligence than no planes and no hijackers, which is basically low-hanging fruit.